And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am thrilled to be hosting award-winning author Kris Calvin, all about her brand new book, All That Fall, live from San Francisco, spanning the coasts today, the East Coast to the West Coast, the East Coast to the West Coast. And we are thrilled to have her here. Kris, welcome. Tell us about All That Fall.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate your having me here. So, All That Fall is a thriller, a modern day thriller. It takes place over 48 hours only. So there's only 2 days in the 300 pages. Ooh. It's about a young woman who is a government ethics investigator in the capital of California, but she's not really doing her job during this book. That's going to happen in the next book, the sequel. Here she takes a day off to help her best friend open a preschool, and the morning takes a shocking turn. Unfortunately, there are lots of bad things happening throughout the book with murders and kidnappings and so on. I will say that because of my background and the things that I've worked on, no child comes to harm. There are children in jeopardy. But as a little bit of a spoiler for sensitive readers, of which I'm one, it's an adult thriller with action, but we're going to keep our kids safe by the end.
We're getting hearts up from Facebook. I appreciate that spoiler, because as a very sensitive soul over here, as that sensitive reader, I need to know that no kids and no animals will be harmed. I cannot read a book if the kids or the four-legged friends. We're getting so many hearts up from Facebook. Thank you, everybody. You're in the right place, everybody. You're in the right place. So if you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, we're so happy to have you. Here's the drill. Every Tuesday, I give you two featured author, 2 for Tuesday, and you get to ask them anything. So here's your chance to ask award-winning author Kris Calvin anything about her writing process, her book, her background, how she does it, why she does it, anything you're wondering, get it going in the comments. And my partner in crime, pun intended, Miss Kimberly Hensel-Lawrence, is going to be helping me out here today. She's a member of the Blaze team and a writer herself. So I see people are logging on. Welcome, Sharon. Welcome, Gail, top community member there. Welcome back. Erin, welcome. Erin saying hi. Hi, Sylvia. Good to have you back. Anissa from South Carolina. She says hi from SC. Good to have you back. Top community member there. It's so good to have everybody. Oh, we've got someone from logging in. Alan saying hi from Alan and Dorothy. Hi, everybody. We've got somebody watching in Omaha. That's the one good thing about the pandemic, right? We're all here together. Okay, first question is already coming in from Margaret, who's watching from Portland, Oregon, West Coaster over there. She says, I see a tiger. I have to ask about that. I too noticed the tiger. Kris, what's going on with that tiger?
So all of the furnishings in my home are thrift shop or estate sale. I'm a single parent of 3 kids, and so for a long time have been creative about how I do things here. And this is actually my son's room. The tiger was just from an apartment yard sale, and so I don't know his particular history, but I did move him up to Northern California from Southern California, seatbelted in the front seat of my car. So got a lot of odd looks driving with him because my son was so concerned that he not be harmed in the process of bringing him up here. So there you go, safety even of the ceramic tiger. So I don't know his story. Maybe one day I'll have to write a short story featuring him. I should think about that.
Oh my gosh, I thought you meant your kid was in the front seat, but you meant the tiger.
I meant the tiger was seatbelted in the front seat of the car with me while I was driving because we didn't want him to go in the moving truck and have any tiger injuries. So,
oh God, yeah, I can't have a beheaded tiger or anything like that. Sharon saying hi from Minnesota. Hey, Sharon, good to have you here today with us. Welcome. So if you guys have any questions, just get them going right there in the comments. Erin is saying she's so excited about this great book. Erin, all of us love that. Margaret saying she loves that tiger story. Me too. Yay. Gail is saying, yes, but you can use the carpool lane, the HOV.
I didn't think of that. That's a good idea.
The tiger is a person too. Oh my God.
This tiger is.
Somebody is saying no tigers were harmed in the making of this move. I love it because I too am worried about the tiger, you guys. So Kris has promised to reveal a never before revealed secret. And you know, that's what we're here for on the series, right? We want to get those secrets. I try to pry out at least one secret per show. So Kris, we got to know, what's your secret, lady? Give it to us.
So I am mostly a reader. I read about 2 fiction books a week. I never thought of being a writer. I'm not a person who kept a diary, a journal, or anything like that. But because I'm doing sort of politics adjacent policy things in my life and child advocacy, I had an idea for a murder and thought I would do sort of a classic murder mystery. And this was about 5 years ago. And so just for myself, I thought I would write a draft of this classic murder mystery. And then I went to a writer's conference. I advise anyone who has any interest in writing to attend some of these conferences, get to know other readers and writers. And there was a hybrid publisher there that does a Kickshares type. You put up some of the work and people say they like it, and then they pre-order it before the book is finished. And so you don't have any publishing costs. It's not self-published that way, but it's not a traditional publisher. So that book came out 5 years ago, and it got some awards, and it was exciting to me. I didn't expect it. So over the time of my single parenting 80-hour weekday job, I wanted to write a sequel. And this is the reveal part that has been a secret, and I'm still wondering if it's a smart thing to say, but I don't care, because sometimes better to say something different. So I was going to write a sequel to that book. That book features a woman lobbyist named Marin. And so I drafted over those 5 years at various times what I thought would be the sequel. And there was a publisher I really wanted to work with, Crooked Lane, a New York publisher. I love their editor, Terry Bishop. Thought, hey, I'm going to give you the sequel. I don't know how that works if you've done the book first and you want a publisher to pick up a sequel. The way it works, this is the part I have not shared, is they tell you, great, make that sequel about a new person, change the name, change the job, and have a debut that's a different book, even though it was written for Marin. So it sounded easier to the publisher than it sounded to me because I see things like a movie when I write them. And so I had been seeing Marin and her friends and everything happening. And so, of course, instead, I had to basically rewrite the book. But the core of the plot came from a sequel to One Murder More. Some of the characters carry over. So there are some police officers from both worlds. There are some friends from both worlds. But Emma is completely different. Emma Lawson is 32. She's an ethics investigator. So the thing that I've never tried to explain, and it's confusing to me, because I think if people do go back and read the first book, they're going to go, does she only have one idea? Like, these are kind of similar books. When the truth is, this was initially a continuation of that book. It is my first thriller, though. The fact that it takes place over 48 hours and moves like in that way, it's a debut thriller. The other book was a traditional classic mystery.
Oh my gosh. Kris's next book stars someone named Shmema Schmalson. And people are starting to wonder.
And they're going, again, she only had Phil. The next book is another Emma Lawson thriller intentionally. I'd like to have 10 Emma Lawson books. I'm very interested in seeing her path. I mentioned that I have 3 kids that I've raised. I sort of had 2 generations of kids. So I've raised all my life as a single parent, became a single parent when they were, 1 and 2, the first 2, then had another one out of wedlock just to be disorganized. And so I have 3 children. And so Emma has no children and she's 32. And I'm very fascinated. I have friends without kids, either by choice or circumstance. And I could see myself living that life as well. I love my kids, but I'm interested as a woman. What would my life have looked like if I didn't have children? So I'm not Emma, but I want to follow her. And unless something weird happens, I want to see her vibrant, interesting life as different from mine.
Oh, I love that. I am a intentionally child-free woman. I have chosen the child-free path. And I always wonder, what's it like to be a mom? What must that be like? And I peer in and I want to get the skinny, because you always wonder about the path not taken. So I love that you're reciprocally curious.
Exactly.
This is so cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Margaret would like to know, with child advocacy as another interest of yours, Kris, did you ever feel pulled to write in another genre? What about kid lit? And how did you know that murder mystery was the way to go? Margaret, as always, with the great questions. Margaret's also an author, also a member of the Blaze team, and you can tell because she gets right on in there. So, Kris, give us the skinny to this 2-part question.
And nice to virtually meet you, Margaret. I'd love to hear about what you write too. I don't choose, I think, the way that some people who knew they wanted to be authors choose. Again, because I just have always read so much when I was a little kid the library was a very safe place for me. I was frightened. I had a lot of issues, and I was not really comfortable in my own home because of some things about myself. And the library was safe. And I liked adventure stories about kids who either saved themselves or other people saved them. And as I got older, those became those adult adventure stories. So mysteries and thrillers and crime fiction are mostly what I read. I read across genres, and I like sci-fi and fantasy. And I do like I enjoyed very much the Harry Potter books back then, and Hunger Games and all that. I do like different sort of reading. And if anybody has good middle grade or young adult, I know Beth McMullen has some great spy school stories. So anything that I read, I feel as though I can learn from, and I have thought about writing some type of middle grade young adult, mainly because teens are my favorite age of kids. The babies are fine. Pass that baby to that person and bring me the 13-year-old to sit down and tell me where they think the world is going. Ooh. So that's really the age that I'm most interested in if I do end up writing that.
Oh, interesting. See, I'm a baby holder. I love.
There you go.
I love to hold their warm little bodies and smell their heads.
That's
Kimberly
nice too. That's nice too.
Kimberly and I were just talking about teenagers. She was telling me some stuff I didn't know about teenagers, and I was slightly terrified. I mean, teenagers, they kind of scare me, but sometimes they're really cool. The library was also my safe place and still my favorite place to go. So I'm totally vibing off of this. Who else loves the library? And what's your favorite library? Tell us in the comments. Ooh, Sylvia, great question. Reading as many books as you do each week, and 2 books a week. My God, woman, you're like a speed reader over there. Who are authors who structure books you admire? I love the specificity of that question, Kris.
I was going to say, I appreciate also the specificity, because quite often I enjoy so many different authors and different kinds of authors that I hate to mention a few and then think, but I should have said that author or this author. And so the structure makes it a really interesting question. I know Kate Atkinson has done some where there are multiple. She has a Jackson Brody detective series, which is amazing. And one of the things that kind of motivated me to try writing. And she sometimes goes back and forth, different points of view. There's a writer named Chris Holm, who has a series that has to do with a hitman who's then kind of the hero of the story. And I know there are others that have that as a basis, but his are quite amazing, flawlessly written, where again, he has a lot of point of views. It's Chris, F middle initial, and then HOLM. So those are a couple where, for me, I know a lot of people you stick with one person. It's the detective, it's the protagonist, and you follow them through every chapter. And I enjoy those as well. I don't know how to write those because, again, I'm not an outliner either. I know a lot of the authors you interview are not, but because I sort of see the movie, that's how I ended up with a kidnapping. The 3-year-old just showed up and she's like, hi, and then she's gone. And I'm going, where did she go? So, it just kind of evolves. And so I like seeing structures where people are able to not lose their readers, even though they're trying to do a lot of things.
Ooh, I love that. So you like books whose structure does not allow them to lose the readers, even though there's lots going on. They're somehow
lots of point of views usually, which can be a difficult situation for the reader.
Yes, and also for the writer.
Yeah, that's true too.
I'm trying to write a 4 POV, and it's not going so good, Kris.
Oh, okay, excellent. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so many great comments coming in. Margaret says Seattle's modern public library is amazing. Highly recommend for the facility and the staff. I love that. So in Portland, Oregon. Oh my God, what am I saying? Not Seattle, not Portland. What am I saying? Seattle. Margaret is in Portland, but she's recommending Seattle. And Nisa says, I work in a school library. Oh my gosh, and Nisa, that's so cool. So a school library in South Carolina. Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that. Libraries are seriously the very best. So speaking of structure, let's talk about some of your amazing praise, Miss Kris. So Lisa Preston raves, clear your schedule because all that fall will keep you reading. So clearly you have mastered that structure challenge we were just talking about. What do you think is the secret to mastering that? How do you keep people reading?
So I think it helps to be a big reader because I know what makes me put a book down. So I always want to look at the end of the scene and say, is there any reason for me to go to the next scene or the next chapter? And if there's not, go back and look at what I wrote, look at the characters who were walking in my movie and that I wrote down, and see what's missing that would keep me reading. I will say that something I learned from this book, because this is, again, multiple points of view, and Emma doesn't really emerge as a hero until probably a third of the way in. So you're meeting the police and the finding about the crimes and lots of people, and there's still a lot happening, I think. People who read it seem to be able to follow it well. People who listened to the audiobook and they loved the audiobook narrator, Caitlin Davis is award-winning, amazing. I got to be part of selecting her, and I love her, and they did enjoy the audiobook. But there were people who listened to the audiobook who said that because they couldn't go back and look at a page and see who someone was, and then their point of view emerged again, that was hard for them, and they couldn't really rewind it. They're on their exercise bike or they're out walking. So I learned from that even though I appreciate people enjoyed it because of Caitlin, she's such a good narrator, and they stuck with it and then enjoyed really the, staying in the heart of the book, which is with Emma and a teenager, Luke, that I learned from it in the second book to think about what it would be like to someone listening to the book. Who couldn't just, tell the person reading it, stop, I want you to go back to the second chapter. So that was informative to me as a writer.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. And it's really, I love that you said that you see your books as movies. You're a very visual person, as am I. So you mentioned that, one of the keys to keep those people reading is you think of yourself first as a reader, and you think about what makes you put a book down. What does make you put a book down?
So I am not as enamored as some people who really enjoy setting and really can dive into what a room looks like. Like, think of describing this room. There are writers who could just spend time with so much talent, and it's very enjoyable for a lot of readers. For me, I have to be pretty wedded to the quest, to the lead characters, and maybe by chapter 17, if you want to get into the room and I'm already in love with this person or that person, and I can sit back for a minute and know they're going to come back in the room. But books that early on have a lot of setting or backstory will often lose me because I want to know that person, or people, if it's multiple point of view.
Oh, interesting. Margaret is saying that she's one
there
of those.
There you go. And they do
freaks.
exist. They do exist.
Here she is in the person.
There she is. Okay, well, I'm going to have to read a little bit of yours, Margaret, and then see. Because some people, Eileen Randall is a fabulous, fabulous author, and she often does workshops and things on setting. And I think the best setting is when there's a lot, like you could talk about this room, but the reader is not aware that they're pausing for that, right? They're absorbing it as, this is important to me because the character, this is telling me about the character, this setting, or this is telling me frightened because this setting is foreboding. So I think I should revise my earlier statement to say it's not so much that people stay with setting, it's that they stay with setting in a way that doesn't connect me to either the character or the sort of what the tone is. Settings can be scary in and of themselves.
That's true. I was recently reading an article, and Margaret specializes in historical fiction, especially set in England and Scotland.
Oh, very cool.
And I recently was reading an article noting that how much time that we are in changes how people write. So they were saying back in the days of the Jane Austen, they would spend 60 to 80 pages just on setting before you get to the juice. And how people now have their attention spans, and I'm so guilty of this, have shrunk to the size of a gnat. We can't even watch like a 6-minute YouTube. It's got to be a 30-second TikTok. They keep getting smaller and smaller. And so a lot of us don't have the bandwidth to read that 60 to 80 pages of setting. But I think what you're saying is so true. And I'm sure Margaret would agree. Margaret, let us know in the comments that when you are making that setting so vital, when you're creating that sense of foreboding, when there's the creaky staircase, when there's the tapping at the window, when there's, footsteps on the roof, it can be used very effectively to keep us reeled in.
I also think modern. So I write modern. I don't write historical. It is true that when I read historical, I probably do want more of the setting because I'm learning. I'm learning what it was like then. What were the roads made of? How did they light their rooms? You know, like in historical fiction, I think it's necessary, or the person can't go with you on that trip. I was thinking more a modern book that I read, I might be more likely to put it down if I don't feel that the setting is necessary to me to get me from point A to point B.
Yes. Such a good point. Margaret's saying, take that charm and hit the road. She loves it. I love it. Okay. Oh my gosh, so many great comments coming in. Okay, Sylvia would like to know, what time of day do you choose to write? Yeah, fill us in. Do you rise with the sun? Are you a 5 a.m. writer, or are you a midnight
first of all,
writer?
I'm a morning person. Even in college, I couldn't really stay up much past 10 o'clock because everybody, let's go. You know, and I'm like, oh, please, I got to go to sleep. So I generally write starting between 4 and 5. It also came from being a single parent. Yeah, 4 and 5 a.m. because it's when, first of all, I'm a morning person. I'm most creative then. But secondly, because my kids would be sleeping and then I would have time to do things for myself. Also, I've had a very demanding day job until January 6th was the last day of it. So I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. So the only time to write was first thing in the morning. One thing I will say, and I know everybody's heard this from other writers, but if you are a writer and you want to be an author, meaning you want to share what you're writing with other people, there is never time to do it. So it's not a matter of waiting till there's time. Find the time in your day that you can fit in an hour every day. For me, that's this morning. I started late at 6, but that's late for me.
Wow. Margaret is commenting Sarah's face, and I was like,
but yeah. I can't write at midnight or 1 or 2, and some people can.
Those are my best hours. And it's completely, I just learned, I did the 23andMe DNA. I learned it's completely genetic.
Really?
You can try to train yourself, but it's never really going to click for you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's completely genetic. And I've always been that way since I was a little kid. I was a little kid who was, the moon came up and I came alive. So
wow. Yeah, my daughter is also like that. In fact, as a baby, we had a real struggle because as a morning person, she didn't want to go to sleep till like 2 a.m. And I just had to watch old movies and stuff with the toddler by my side because it was the only way I was going to make it.
Exactly. Anissa would like to know, since you do not outline, how do you keep up with your characters so they do not reveal secrets too early or too late? So I think this is a 2-part question. And Anissa, such a great one. Thank you. So if you're not outlining, how do you both keep up with your characters, make sure the story is doing, and then let's talk, and then we'll pause there. And then the second part of the question will be about pacing, making sure you don't reveal them too early or too late, because that's something that I really admire when people do well and struggle to do well myself. So let's take that in 2 parts.
And first of all, Anissa, thank you for being a school librarian. Again, as someone who feels like I'm here in sort of one piece because of libraries and librarians, I appreciate that. For me, I don't do the very messy first draft. That I've tried. And in fact, now that I have a contract and it's due on a certain date, I thought that's what I have to do. Even though I don't outline, I just have to keep going. I have to keep going. And I did basically 30,000 words I had to throw out because I was just forcing myself to keep going. Yeah. I hone and polish chapter 1 over and over because things that are not happening on the page that I know are making the character say what she said or pause when she paused. I'm sort of thinking through the book. I'm not outlining, but I'm seeing what the person is like as each chapter builds on the chapter before. And so by the time I've finished the story, which takes me, I think, longer than a lot of people because the first draft, it's not done. There are mistakes and their chapters get thrown out and things that have to be filled in. But I've spent a lot of time with every character as I'm going forward. At the end of that first draft, I have a chart. So it looks like a serial killer's den. I have stuff all over my walls. I have stuff online where I want to see how many times where does each character appear? So I mark a little X for each chapter they're in. If a character's in chapter 3 and not until chapter 37, I may remember them. The reader will not. So I go back and stick them walking by in chapter 17. So I want to know where every character falls in the book so I don't lose anybody. And then I also do the same thing with settings. I see whether I'm repeating settings enough so that people are as familiar as I am. In terms of revealing secrets, that's probably from reading thousands of books. I know when I want to know, when I don't want to know. It does get fixed. All that fall was 17 drafts. So when I say the first draft isn't as messy as most people's, it still means that all those charts and everything are being brought in. So I sort of do my outlining afterwards.
Oh, wow. That is fascinating. And I want to know so much more about every piece of that. But first, I just see a comment popping up here, and from Ms. Ellen Meester, who's coming up, and I'm not sure if it's Meester or Meister, but she's coming up at 4 p.m. right after this. So, Ellen, can't wait to have you on next. Thanks so much for joining us with Kris. She's saying she also relates to the inability to write that messy first draft. Let's pause there. So, when you say that, you mean you literally just write chapter 1 and you polish it, you hone it, you polish it,
I don't stay with chapter 1. So I write chapter 1, and then I write chapter 2, and then the next morning when I get up, I reread chapter 1 and I make some fixes or changes, and I write chapter 2 and chapter 3. And now I'm so far along that I don't have time to reread them all each morning. So instead, what I do is I read the first paragraph of each page through to where I'm picking up today. And then if I'm going to write later in the day, I read the second paragraph of each page to where I'm picking up today, so that I'm always in the flow of the book as a reader. If I don't read, I can't write. For me, I have to, and someone, I read once that Hemingway read what he wrote every day before he started again. And I now realize that has to be a myth, because you could never, ever, ever finish a book. It just can't be true. But I come as close to that as I can by reading parts of the book before I start a new paragraph.
Oh, that's so interesting. Anissa saying, very interesting. I totally agree. This is a fascinating hashtag BTS, behind the scenes, as the cool kids say, which Anissa, you would know being a school librarian, clearly one of the cool kids. She said, it's so cool to hear how differently authors write books. Okay, so just to make sure I understand. So if you're on page 97, you read the first paragraph of the first 96 pages.
Or if I read the first paragraph yesterday, I read the second or the third of the 96 or the fourth. And obviously I'm reading very fast, but what'll happen is I see something that spurs me on page 97. I go, oh my gosh, she couldn't walk any further in those uncomfortable shoes in chapter 4, paragraph 2. And now she's in chapter 97, and maybe she twists her ankle and this happens, so you can pull, and then the reader is getting those threads with you.
I love that. I love that. Welcome, Shane. Welcome, Leslie. Good to have you back. That is so fascinating. I just looked at the clock. I'm chatting away like I got all day, but I just looked at the clock. I'm like, oh my God, we've been talking for a while. We are entering the speed round, everybody. So get your final questions for Kris going. What do you want to know about her writing process, about her, about San Francisco, whatever you're wondering, all that fall. I have a question while you're getting them going. I have a question. So you wrote this book about, again, you said it takes place in 48 hours. This government ethics investigator is helping her friend open a school, and bam, the governor's granddaughter is kidnapped. What made you think of kidnapping this kid?
So again, I wish I knew. I don't. I don't have a relationship with my character the way some people will say, well, my character did it and they made me do it. Again, it's much more like a reader. I'm kind of going along, and I have a teenager, Luke, and I have Emma, and Emma's best friend, Kate, and lots of things are happening. And literally the child appears, and I don't, I didn't decide to kidnap her. It's just the other things that were happening meant that happened. I don't have a better explanation.
Wow, I love that. I just want to remind
everybody. Love the little girl, by the way, the 3-year-old little girl in the book. I just, I don't know her. She's not from someone. I really got to love her.
Yay. I just want to remind everybody that you can grab a copy of All That Fall today and support independent bookstores. Kimberly, my partner in crime, just posted the link again in the comments. Kimberly, thank you so much. So everybody grab your copy right now so that you can follow this kidnapping story, this blood pounding, heart racing 48 hours, and which is getting so much amazing praise. I want to make sure that I mean, it could go on and on. Kirkus Reviews calls it a rich and detailed story. So very interesting that they would use the word detailed, because you were saying that you don't really, love setting, but clearly you've given enough detail that you've reeled it and made it feel very rich and luscious. We're getting hearts up from Facebook. Thanks, guys. The Midwest Book Review says that is a compulsive page turner of a story. Wow, really high praise. Bob Dagoni, who's appeared on the show, said it is a sizzling thriller, chock full of suspense and intrigue. High praise from Bob there. Meg Gardner says suspenseful, complex, and engaging. R.H. Hearn says tightly plotted, which is especially interesting because we know now that she doesn't plot, but she's fooled us all. And emotionally resonant. What do you think the secret is to writing an emotionally resonant story is? How do you connect with us?
I don't know that there's a secret to it, except again, read a lot and read across genres so that you know what words have meaning, what words will speak to you. I will say one thing I do in all those 17 drafts. It's like an orchestra playing a song, and if there's one clunky note, I feel it. So I'll see a word and it won't resonate. It won't seem to have use there. I did a master class with Lee Child. It was about 8 people. It was at Thriller Fest. It wasn't because I was any big deal. You paid to get to do it. I paid to get to do it. So I was with Lee Child doing this, and you had to submit some work to get in it as a master class. And then he spent about 8 hours. I think he probably did it once and never did it again. But he was amazing. And a couple of the things that he said that I remember, one of the most important things was, look at the paragraph. Is there anything you can take out? The sentence, is there anything you can take out? The phrase, is there anything you can take out? Only leave in what you have to tell the reader at that moment. And so I really took that to heart. And again, with each piece of it, I think it can resonate more emotionally if there's not a lot that's unnecessary. So again, setting can be necessary, but especially in dialogue, I try to make sure that if the person said 2 sentences and the thought could come out in 2 words, cut it.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Kris Calvin dropping gems over here. Kris, what's one question that you wish I'd asked that you want to leave us with? A parting thought that you want to leave us with, that you want to be sure we know this about you or your book?
So it's less about me or my book, but I still, it's something that I do want to say. I never thought of myself as a creative person. I'm very analytical. I was an economics and forensic psychology major. I was afraid of creative things, that I would get them wrong and people would laugh at me and so on. If there's anything creative you've ever wanted or thought about doing, whether it's singing, dancing, painting, or even gardening or traveling, anything creative, just try it and get it wrong. Do it for yourself. And then ask an expert. My first draft of that first book, an expert, an developmental editor told me it was terrible. So I did have to learn. I did have to read about writing and learn. But try things, because I was seeing my life as sort of just, one foot in front of the other, make sure my kids are okay, make sure my job is okay. And it is the trying something creative that brought me joy and makes me want to live to be 100, knock on something. So that's it.
I love that because how many of us have that book inside of us, have that business inside of us, have that idea
business too, exactly.
But fear holds us back, because how terrifying is it to hold this nascent bud of an idea deep within us? And then what if you put it out there and people laugh or say it's stupid or say it's bad or,
which is what happened to me. And you just can see through that, but you can't see through never having tried. Then your life doesn't have that.
Oh, I love that. Oh, Sylvia says, I wish more authors would self-edit like that. What you're talking about of what going through paragraph by paragraph with what you do with Lee Child. She said, there's nothing like reading a 600-page book and thinking it could have had the same effect in 420. Sylvia, I love your specificity.
Long, yeah.
Sylvia didn't say a 300 book down to 80 pages. No. Sylvia's saying and she's not saying write a magazine. Or a magazine article. She's saying just don't write an encyclopedia when it could have just been a tasty 420 pager.
There you go.
Sylvia, that is fantastic. On that note, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We have Ellen up at 4 p.m. Kris Calvin, thank you for coming on, for sharing your secrets, for spilling your guts, for giving us all the delicious behind the scenes details about your brand new book, the All That Fall. We're getting so many hearts up from Facebook. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to my partner in crime, Kimberly Hensel Lawrence, who has just been killing it on the production side. Kimberly, you're amazing. We'll see you next time, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Kimberly. It was really, really a pleasure. You're an amazing host. So now I'm a fan of the show. Seriously, I was telling you beforehand, I was watching one to get the idea. I was like, why am I not watching this every Tuesday? So it's a pleasure.
Yay. Thank you so much.